What's something you weren't allowed to do as a child that your other friends were allowed to do? Use modern media 90s kid. I was allowed to watch max 60 minutes of TV or play 60 minutes, advertisement break. Still counts, Blockbuster is longer than 60 minutes? Why did you even start watching? A friend's B-day at the movies, I pick you up 60 minutes in, thanks dad that really helped making friends. Watch The Simpsons. I told my mum to eat my shorts when I was like 4/5 and it was banned in our house after that. The list is long but I'll post some highlights. In the summer we were not allowed to go outside till after 3 p.m. because it was too hot. Ages, till I was 14. When we did get to play outside we had to stay inside the fenced area. Ages, till I was 14 we were not allowed to go the movies unless mom came, and even then we had to pay ourselves and absolutely no popcorn or snacks. Ages, till I was 18 my parents were super strict. They did this with my older brothers also. When two of my older brothers were 16 and 17 they ran away from home because they couldn't take the rules anymore. Edit, here's one I forgot. I was 13 when we all went to Great Adventure. My dad got free tickets from work and he wanted to see the animal safari. My younger brother and I weren't allowed to go on the rides, can you imagine? We saw some of the shows and walked around all day. My little brother cried a lot. My older brothers got to do all the rides. I wasn't allowed to have friends over, or let them into the house for a second. I had several friends who were neighbors, and I recall as an 7-8-year-old telling them to stand at the door while I grabbed something inside as they aren't allowed in. Have fun. My mother, as mentioned in another one of my posts, believed children should be working and productive. Anything that did not jive with that productive behavior was worthless and therefore unnecessary for children. We were hired out to neighbors to do work for them, and when they thoughtfully paid us for our efforts, we were not allowed to keep it. It went into my mother's hand for allowing us to work for the neighbors. And #X200B, I cannot remember how many evenings after mowing lawns or raking leaves that I just sat on my bed, with blistered hands wondering how in the world this was happening to me. And #X200B, also summer vacations? Ha 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 ha. Try, we've decided you needed a job at 12, so rather than letting you have the fun of mowing lawns, which your father and I know is easy and fun for you, I've decided you'll be working for me on the local farm, picking corn. Day starts at 4 a.m. Weekdays and weekends. And #X200B, yeah, anytime my friends wanted to hang out in the summer, if I was allowed, on very sparing occasions, to go to a friend's house, my mother would drive by their place all day long randomly, making sure I was where I was supposed to be. On my arrival home, I'd be expected to share what I had been doing all day long. And if I didn't lie and say we'd done some random job for the parent, I'd be told, enough with the vacation and laying around all day. And #X200B, was a wonderful time to be a child, said no one ever. I was a first kid, so most of those things are allowed for my siblings today, but I was not allowed to read, as in all my books would regularly get removed from my room and locked up. At first it was just any fantasy book, then it became all my books. Watch SpongeBob SquarePants or anything on the Cartoon Network channel, play video games, except if we were traveling in the car or if I managed to come up with a way to ask for it that was original enough to make my mom laugh. Draw too many imaginary things, daydream write for more than an hour. Me parents weren't religious, they just thought that if I got my nose out of my books and became more grounded in reality, the bullies at school would stop picking on me and I would make more friends. They went on until I was 16 or so and I went to go see a psychiatrist for my depression and finally realized I was not a bad person for liking imaginary worlds. Go outside at all, spend money, have privacy. Arguth list goes on. I wasn't allowed to own a games console. Luckily, by the time my parents discovered the educational homework PC was loaded with games, I was able to claim established rights and keep them. Also, I casually mentioned that PC games were what boosted my English proficiency. They never found out that my English mostly came from Magic: The Gathering. Go out, like 99% of the time. Visit a friend's house? No way man. Sleepover? Nah. Recess in elementary school? Nah, I literally had a note that I had to bring to the school saying I couldn't go out for recess because I had a pollen allergy. I am not allergic to pollen. Cursing was out of the question, but some other words we weren't allowed to say were dumb, hate, stupid, shut up. I got so excited when I learned the word loathe, and it was technically allowed. Edit, forgot about jerk. Even if we were describing someone who was mean at school, we had to come up with other words. Edit 2, clarification, and forgot about the forbidden word, suck. Most things, I wasn't allowed to go trick-or-treating alone with my friends in my own neighborhood, even at an age 13 plus, when that's considered completely normal by basically everyone else. I wasn't allowed to just go places and hang out with friends, like the library or the mall or anything. My mom had to be there if I wasn't at someone's house, even well into high school, and after cell phones were more commonplace, I wasn't allowed to use the stove pretty much until my last year of high school. Wasn't allowed to use anything sharper than a butter knife until I was in my 20s. I wasn't allowed to be home alone overnight until I was over 21. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere overnight until I moved out. I wasn't allowed to see PG-13 movies until I was 15. I was never allowed to see R-rated movies at all, even as an adult. I think I'm still, in her mind, technically not allowed to see them. Also, one time when I was 21 or 22, there was a screening of an indie movie in Washington, D.C., which is only about 30 minutes by train from my parents' house. I asked if I could go and my mom just refused it. No reason, just didn't want me going into Washington, D.C. Even though she used to drag my unwilling child self there for years. I have no idea why these restrictions existed, considering they didn't exist for my younger brother. The only thing I can think of is that she wanted to keep me helpless and dependent on her, so I couldn't leave, even though she hated me and everything about me. I was one of those kids that was allowed to do almost anything. However, there was one movie, and only one movie, I wasn't allowed to watch that all my mates were allowed to watch when it came out, and that was 8 Mile. My mom wouldn't let me see the movie Titanic because the scene at the end was too violent. My mom was kinda nuts and still is. I wasn't allowed to put my whole mouth on a plastic bottle to drink K out of it. I had to pucker my lips and force my lips inside the bottle. Later my mom told me that she made me and my sister do that so we wouldn't turn gay. I was hilariously made fun of by friends when they'd see me struggle so much to drink from a fluffin' bottle. Edit, wow, totally didn't expect this to blow up or see some of you had something similar happen. This gave me an idea, and I actually have a ton of things I can spill about my mom. I'm going to share them on our stories if you would like to follow me to hear more tales of my mom. Watch shows like Pokémon, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and any similar show. I wasn't allowed because that would make me violent. Eat junk food. I remember being at a family friend's house once with my dad, and one of the other kids was eating potato chips. My dad let me eat exactly 4 and I was ecstatic. I could go in my own yard whenever I wanted, but wasn't allowed to go anywhere else without my mother physically seeing me go there. This applied to next door. One day in my yard, the kids next door asked if I wanted to come over to play. I went in to ask my mother, but, since she was sick with the flu and didn't want to get up off the couch to go to the window to watch me enter their house, she said no, even though we were separated by literal inches, by a 4-foot-high fence that I could easily climb. I thought her rule was as ridiculous then as I do now. Eat a sandwich, snack in front of the TV, always had to be at the kitchen table with opera music on the radio. We had to go to bed at 8 p.m. even in the summer when it was still light outside. I don't know why my parents had kids, since it seemed like they always wanted us in bed. Sleepovers. Not me, but a guy I knew, Tim, growing up wasn't allowed to watch Smurfs or anything else fantasy because he had super religious parents and anything of that nature was against God, therefore evil. I wasn't even allowed to bring up He-Man if I came over, but Tim got an education whenever he stayed at my house. Trick-or-treating, we weren't allowed to open the door to them either, because it was encouraging children to beg. We had to clean eggs off the door most years. Have vaccines. Stay up to watch the full movie. I always had one specific time I had to go to bed. Wasn't allowed to eat white bread. Play with Bratz dolls, my parents thought it would turn me into a brat. Also, I remember my dad being weirdly intense about me not watching Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, not sure why. Go out and do normal teen stuff without the fear of repercussions, and #X200B. What I mean by this is, my parents really like the do the whole, our kids should fear us, that is how we command respect thing. My dad was a construction worker, so he was rather large and strong, never really wanted to mess with him, and my mom was pretty scary when angry. They also had the uncanny ability to figure stuff out about what we were doing, and then when they confront myself or my siblings about it, they would mention that they have eyes all over or some garbage like that. Combine those two things and you have kids who are now afraid to do anything that might be conceived as wrong based on the fear of the parents finding out and dishing out punishment. And #X200B, suffice to say, my friends didn't have a similar situation and thus, got to do a lot of stuff I didn't. I'm still salty about it, lol. Wasn't allowed to talk to other kids. Apparently my mom had a mental disorder caused by depression after my dad died. She said she wouldn't want me to talk to other kids, including my friends. I understand she wanted to protect me from being really sad by not socializing, but being a kid without any good childhood memories saddens me more. She would often shout and slap me when she sees me talking to others. It was actually the most depressing 18 years of my life.